This is More Than Reality podcast, where we dive into all things faith, family, and marriage and share that there is so much more than the reality that you see on the surface. Welcome to More Than Reality with Adam and Danielle Busby.
All right. This is More Than Reality podcast with Adam and Danielle Busby, and we put out a little Q&A filler on the socials and asked you guys if y'all had some questions. Since started the podcast, we went back from the beginning of us and the Busbys and how we met, falling in love, dating, married. We talked a little bit about Adam's growing up lifestyle and how I grew up. And we felt like that was kind of a good breaking point for, there's been a lot of questions coming in. So we thought we would post about it and say, you've heard all this stuff that maybe you've never heard before. Why don't we do a Q&A to answer some of the maybe remaining questions that we may not have quite dug into.
Yeah. Whenever you're sharing your story in long form, I mean, obviously we're going for anywhere from 45 minutes to well over an hour, almost 2 hours that's when we broke it up into two. You just kind of get into a rhythm and you're talking and you're just kind of going through your story and either stuff get left unsaid or we alluded to some things like possibly in a teaser that we didn't quite hit on enough. And so, there was a lot of questions that just arose from just hearing our story and people want to know a little bit more or had a few extra little questions here and there. And so, we put it on Instagram and we did this isn't even all of them, but
I don't think they care to see.
I'm flipping through all these questions right here. So
I'm sure.
And there was some there was a lot of double questions. Obviously, a lot of people asked the same things. There's one in particular that was probably asked about 100 times. And so I just went through and kind of highlighted the ones that were applicable to
what we talked about
the last few episodes.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously there's a lot of questions that people have about, anytime we do a Q&A, it's a lot of the typical questions of
filming and
the kids and stuff like that, which there's a couple in here that I was somewhat applicable. So I'll hit a couple of them, but these are just questions left without answers. And so we're going to get to it.
Okay, so what's the first spicy question?
I don't even know
How are we starting this?
I don't even know if I should start this one first, though, just because I'll save that one. First question, how did Danielle feel when I was proposing to you?
Well, I felt like I did a pretty good job saying that I was annoyed.
Okay.
Because it was just so Adam with his keeping a secret, but doesn't like secrets and just being mischievous. Not saying anything, acting weird, just leaving you hanging. And you're just like, what? Just say, what are we doing?
Yeah, that's one thing that everybody is so annoyed by me for, our family and friends and stuff, because
you always leave us hanging.
If there's something that I know that other people don't, I'll kind of string it along.
Yes, and it's annoying.
And just only tell you just enough. And so
but in the moment
it
of
irks
proposal,
a lot of people.
In the moment of, this question of proposal, I just was you're not, he was just going out wild in a sense. Nothing was making sense because we weren't supposed to be here. We were supposed to be going to the family Christmas on his side and he goes here and it was just so weird. It was just all weird. I was a little bit frustrated because we were late and we weren't where we were supposed to be. And I had no idea why we were stopping at his parents' house and stuff. And so once I really realized, and then he turned off the TV and then it was okay, why are you, okay, now we're leaving, but you weren't saying anything. And it's just what? I always wanted to shake and be what are you doing? What is wrong? I guess whenever he got down, it was oh, hold the roll. This is about to happen.
Actually, that question was Madison on Instagram. So I guess I'll just say your names just so
Thanks, Madison. Another Madison that we will speak of.
Yeah. This is from Ellie Young on Instagram, obviously. Do you think your reality show accurately represented you guys' relationship?
That's a good question. I think that we, as in ourselves, we're always ourselves. And as far as portrayed us how we were. I think we were how we always are. I felt like when we were filming, we were, but it just comes down to like
knowing us
and understanding dynamics, but also, you know, certain things like you'll film in like today, and this is how it's going to fall in the episode. And then the episode might get moved around, which means that they got to move the scenes around. And it's not always as perfect as it is with the first time you film it, you know?
Yeah.
And so that's because there's a lot of people giving feedback in, you know, the realm of production and network and stuff as they're seeing cuts and everything. But I feel confident to say that I was portrayed, you were portrayed as we are. Was it portrayed on TV after being edited? And that I would say from the very beginning till the very end, we learned a lot about how production and filming goes. And we realized that certain things change and we weren't aware of it.
Yeah. It's creative control.
Yes. So
in editing.
I don't know. I mean,
there's things that like, you know, they'll take, you know, that's just part of editing. I mean, obviously the show is edited for dramatic effect. And so like you may have a 10-minute conversation by Danielle and I, and
you might get 2 minutes of
you're going to get maybe like 30 seconds of that, if that, on the TV show. And so they take like a 15-minute long conversation.
Yeah.
And so they can actually take, you know, like all of those looks, or, you know, if I'm like looking down, or it, you know, to a viewer, whenever I'm just like looking down, or, you know, I just may look down at something, but it looks like, oh, I'm frustrated or I'm upset. And so they'll like clip in those like moments where like it's like an off glance or a look or whatever, because it heightens the drama. And so, you know, they can do a lot with with editing and stuff to make you swing one way or the other. You know, for some stuff, I mean, a lot of the things, especially even arguments and stuff that we had on TV, a good majority of those, Danielle and I, it was more sarcasm, and we were kind of joking, like banter back and forth. And for us, it didn't necessarily seem like an argument. We're just kind of like jabbing each other back and forth. And it's the second the cameras got put down, we were kind of laughing about it. But hindsight, you look at the episode and people were like, oh gosh, like things are bad. And it wasn't
one of the questions that
really
come
that
up.
way.
Why does media and stuff always say y'all are separate or whatever?
Yeah.
Because that brings clickbait. And
I mean,
it's based off of like, they'll just take any small little thing and turn it into something just so somebody will click on it. And that works because when it's bad news, people want to know what happened, and you click on it, and that's where they get profited from, just the click. The information is false and lies. And I always tell people, if it is not coming from Adam or I, it's not true.
Yeah.
If I didn't post it, if Adam didn't post it, if it's not on It's a Buzzworld, at this point, if it's not on More Than Reality, it's not true.
Yeah.
You know, because otherwise, those are the things that we control.
Yeah. I mean, or they'll take, I mean, just speaking on like tabloids and stuff like that. I mean, they'll take one of the most ridiculous things just like a week or so ago, whenever I went on there and I did this Instagram reel talking about just like I was frustrated because like I did that upside down TikTok with all the girls and they were all laughing. And I mean, they were just having a good time through it. Put it on Instagram and it did great. Put it on TikTok and then it did really good. But then like 24 hours later or something like that,
got taken down.
It got taken down. And so like I'm looking on TikTok and I'm like, why is my video taken down or banned or whatever? And so I had to dispute it, but I was just frustrated about it. And I did like a reel on it, just talking about it. And within like a few hours, like TikTok reversed it and put it back up. But some tabloid picked it up and they're like, I mean, just, it was like the worst headline, like Adam Busby canceled for child abuse and like all this stuff.
Oh my word. I didn't see that.
To the point where like I went on their Instagram where they posted the video and I'm like, I'll let them have it. I was like, this is absolutely ridiculous. Like they'll skirt the line of like defamation and it's just ridiculous. But yeah, most of the stuff, I mean, whenever you see people on reality TV, honestly, like people just, obviously there's a history of reality television and people on reality TV, and, you know, especially like multiples parents and stuff like that on reality TV. And, you know, like quite a few of the marriages did not fare so well. And so it's like, you know, that's like the stigma behind like high order multiples parents on reality TV. Like, you know, it's only a matter of time. You know, that's one thing that we've always said. We're like, you know, we're out here living who we are. We have a good support system around us, but between like our family, friends, and church who rally around us and keep us grounded and keep us accountable. And we've done that from the start. And so we always just say, like, you know, we're out here trying to prove everybody wrong, because the world is going to see one thing and just root against you because of everything that has happened in the past with other people. And so we're out here just proving people wrong.
But we've also always said, going into that, you know, life and world and feeling called to share our story so like broad, I guess, we learned a lot through the process of that rim of entertainment and work and whatnot, and has nothing to do with like specifically like the people that worked with us in our house, and, you know, they're family, but we can see and understand how people don't make it through.
Yeah.
I mean, if you are out there filming and sharing your life and all that for the fame or for what you're going to get from it, it's only going to destroy whatever you had before that, because your head is not and your heart is not in the right place. Yeah. Now, to say that we've been married 18 years and, you know, the biggest season of our lives was having Blake in the quintuplets in a TV show, and quintuplets, you know, it's like this was all happening at the same time, and all of it was new, and, you know, working through in that avenue of all that. And then you get through years into it and you just understand it. But we had to have a lot of times where it's like, we've said this before, like, are you mad at me? Like, are we mad at each other? Or is this just because we need to show some emotion or something in this scene?
Yeah.
So you have to be, you cannot go into the realm of entertainment with the head on, what am I going to get from this? You have to, if this is like our scenario, we just felt called to share our story broadly, and we didn't really know what that meant or how long it was going to go or whatever, but we still feel called to share our story in like a mass way. I just totally forgot what I was going to say. Oh
yeah. I mean, so originally whenever we agreed to go down the road of, you want to finish your thought?
I was like, please come back to me. Please come back to me. By the way, I used to always call that like a mom fart.
Mom fart?
No, brain fart. Like the mom
fart. Those are the worst. Let me tell you.
Gross. I don't fart. But I used to call it, it'd be like, I'd call it quint brain. Oh, I'd forget something or whatever. It's like quint brain. It was like bad in the beginning. It was like, what? But that's just like the brain fart, and you forget something. You're like, please come back. But somebody actually just told me the other day when I was posting and saying something, they're like, oh, that's called premenopausal brain. And I'm like, oh Lord, here I go. Now that I'm 40, I'm going to be going through premenopause soon. Thought I already was, but then I wasn't. And anyways, what was I saying? If you like, when we started filming, or when we started this life of public world, we were never really in it for necessarily us, the fame. It was, we want to do this to share something, and we felt called to do it, and we didn't even know what we were sharing.
Yeah.
We just were like, this is it. Like, this is just us. We didn't think anybody was going to watch it. We're like, really? Or is this going to do something? And we still feel like that till this day. Like, we still feel like we have a purpose to share.
Hit on this also a little bit more. Actually, like, as we tell our story, you know, we're going to go into like fertility stuff, infertility stuff, obviously getting pregnant with the quints and stuff. And that segues into like TV stuff too. But so we'll probably elaborate that on a future episode. But yeah, I mean, honestly, why we're doing this right now, we kind of had the same intentions back when we originally signed, you know, the deal to do the TV show. Was as believers, as Christians, like, you know, a big part of like why we chose to do the TV show is because like we're Christians, we have a faith, but also like a part of our faith and just like growing up in church and stuff like that, it's all about like telling your story and like being relatable to other people. And like, this is my journey. And then there's always takeaways that people can have from just learning who you are, your story, you know, and they may resonate with something in your story that may speak to them. And so it's like, we've always encouraged other people to share their stories. And so whenever we were faced with this pretty miraculous story of getting pregnant with quintuplets and just like the crazy nature of that, how scary it was, all this kind of stuff, we're like, you know, God's given us this for a reason, and we're not going to take that lightly. And he's wanting to show, you know, this big miraculous thing to the world. And so it's our duty to share that. So, I mean, to us, we're like, no one's going to watch this.
No one's going to watch us know what we don't think we know what we're doing.
And then also like, but also selfishly, we're like, no one's going to watch this. Like, but selfishly, having this TV show, it'd be like a free documentary of the first couple years of the girl's life, because we didn't think this was going to go on so long. And so we're like, man, okay, yeah, we'll do it, just because like we want this documented for us. And so, I mean, just that in itself is pretty awesome. Like, who has that opportunity to be able to like have this like awesome home footage of their lives? I mean, our kids still, they watch clips and episodes all the time because, you know, it's their life growing up. I mean, we just think of the legacy in the future of like our kids' being able to go back and watch their parents being born and stuff like that, and watching like how their grandmother and grandfather like raised their mom. And that's going to be pretty awesome. You know, that's an awesome legacy to have, you know, and just we'll have that forever. So a big part of just that and our story and stuff like that is just sharing our story. And just that's why we're doing this right here, because yes, that was telling our story, but a dramatized version of our story. Here we get to do it in long form and actually truly like share our heart and really like dive a little bit deeper. So yep. Next question. This is from Laurel.
I like that name.
So, marriage advice. How to have a successful marriage with a large family.
So we're successful.
I don't know. Maybe
with a large family.
I guess she's insinuating that we're successful.
You have to insinuate that. Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
One thing is that you have to. What's the question? Marriage advice.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was just like the topic. This is marriage advice. How to have a successful marriage with a large family.
You got to constantly remind yourself that it's not just you. It's not about just you. And it's a phrase, it's not about you, is a statement that I feel like I use a lot. But because as a large family, you have, you know, one, you're married. So as you become one in marriage, you are bound in this covenant with God and your spouse. From that moment on, Adam and I, we will be in this together until we're on the other side of heaven, right? And we are in heaven. And that's something that we've always kind of just, I think from the very beginning of just understanding, like, what is this covenant? We're doing this in front of God, and he is in our marriage with us. He is the center. And I think no matter what you face, no matter what trials you go through, no matter what uncertainties, no matter what loss or anything, if you can remain to keep God in your marriage and above all in your life, just your day to day, then I think that's the best. I think that is the best advice that we could give, is because guess what? We have been through a lot. And has it been easy? Yeah. Absolutely not. And there's things that we have faced that we never would have imagined for ever anybody, much less anybody we know, much less ourselves, you know? And there's a lot of things that the enemy wants to destroy and attack and divide and separate and hold on to that and like really drift you apart, especially when you're in the heart of something. And you just have to be able to and this is going with years of marriage, because 18 years, starting out 22 years old, being married to now we're 40. That's a big part of our life. Like, we've been together more than we were without each other, in a sense, almost, right? 20 years, 20, yeah, so something like that, whatever. But I
Close.
think if you can keep God as a center point in your marriage, that should sustain your marriage and be able to help you through anything, the good, the bad, the hard, the ugly, the loss, all of it. But that goes to say that doesn't mean that it's always going to be easy and it's always going to be perfect and beautiful and always as is. Like, there are going to be trials. There's going to be things that are hard, and we have faced a lot of those. But one thing that we never put in our vocabulary was the word divorce. Like, that's just never an option.
Yeah.
And if I'm honest, I would say that there have been times where I've just been so over it, where I'm like, I just don't want this. But it's like, that's not what I really want. I don't really want to be over it. But I know in those moments where you're overstressed, you're overworked, you're exhausted, you feel lost, all these things, like, what you need to do is be regrounded in the word and seek the word. And that's something that I feel like Adam and I have been able to have around us, has been like this accountability circle.
Yeah.
So that
that's a huge part for
if
sure.
I am, or he is frustrated with me and whatnot, of course we can talk things out and whatnot, but sometimes we just need someone else to give us some advice, some sound advice. And that comes from our just Christian core, solid believer group of friends and stuff that we have that can pull us out of that and tell us things out of love and tell us things that I can't necessarily hear from Adam in the moment, that maybe my best friend can tell me, and I can hear it and be like, okay, that's so something Adam would say. But if Adam were to tell me that right now and I'm fired up, I'd be like wanting to fight. But sometimes you just need that silence moment and walk through these scenarios like in your head with God and talk to God. But I mean, that's the biggest advice, is that you just got to keep God in the center of your marriage. And
yeah, I would say that for sure.
You're going to fail me and I'm going to fail you.
Yeah. 100%. I mean, we're human. I mean, man, woman, like we're selfish people. And so like, and honestly, I mean, we have a faith, and so for us, like, there is a spiritual world and there's spiritual warfare going on. And, we call it the devil. The enemy wants nothing more than to rip a marriage apart and to see you fail. And so that we go into any disagreement or any argument, and sometimes it's hard, like in the moment when you're just mad about something, but you have to acknowledge that, like, okay, this isn't me versus Danielle right now. Like, you need to approach it as it's us against whatever's going on, whatever this problem is, whatever, and realize, like, your marriage, your relationship right now is under attack, and like we need to fight it together. Yeah,
and you're a team. Like, we have lots of times have to be reminded, like, when we're mad at each other, it's like, we're actually supposed to be a team, and we are a team. Yeah. Why are we, and you'll get through these conflicts and stuff, and it's like, hold on, like, we don't want to fight with each other. We want to be together, but we can have different opinions and stuff that don't necessarily agree, but we need to come to a conclusion together. Yeah. So just.
And we've had, and just to reiterate, like, a point that Danielle was making earlier, just about like having accountability around you and having like very good friends that love you and fight for you. Right. We have friends that know us deeply, know the good and the bad about both of us, and truly will help us fight for our marriage. And they've done that for us, and we've done it for other friends of ours. And that's a huge thing. Yeah. For married couples, is like having other married couples around you that will fight for you. Yeah. And we've been very fortunate to have that. A big part of that is just like having, a good grounded church family. And that's where we've found a lot of those relationships, is through church, through small group at church and stuff like that. And so, but also like having, because this was also like piggybacked onto with a big family. And I think that mom and dad being on the same page in parenting and discipline, all those things, that it has to be that way. Like you can't have two completely different parenting styles amongst mom and dad.
And if you do and feel like you have to come together and decide something for the family.
Yeah.
For the family, you know? And that, yeah.
Because I mean, we have friends and we know people that, I mean, mom and dad, they're almost like polar opposites in the way that they parent, and they have nothing but issues every time something comes up with the kids or whatever. And it's just like, you got to be on the same page. You got to communicate. You got to like set boundaries and stuff like that in parenting and your marriage, because
it's not about mom versus dad with the kids or dad versus mom with the kids. It's about mom and dad parent the kids. Like that's how it should be. They're together and they are one, and you've got to come to a common ground on how you're going to discipline. And in our scenario, I mean, I think this will go into a deeper conversation later in the podcast, when there's a lot of people who ask about like discipline and how do you do this and that. And so it's a good topic to kind of like elaborate on and some tips and stuff that I'm sure that we could point out there. But for the gist of this question of how to have strong marriage and large family and keep it together and, you know, keep God center, surround yourself with good community of Christ-centered people in your life to hold you accountable and fight for your marriage, and then stay together as your styles of parenting and discipline. Be one together with that. Like, it's hard because, you know, you grew up this way, I grew up that way. I want this, you want that, but it doesn't matter. You got to come with something together, and you got to stand firm in that and do it together. So
it's good.
Next.
Actually, I'm going to skip this one and go straight to this one because it's kind of similar. There's just one question. Nicole Mason. Who do you look up to for marriage and parenting?
It's a good question. I mean, gosh, there's probably a lot of people on both scenarios of when I can look at marriage and when I can look at parenting. I don't know if I have like one specific person that like comes to mind, but I would say what I know that I want most when it comes to parenting, like, and my marriage, is to see Jesus through both of those things. And I mean, we've got amazing group of people in our life from church that show that and live that, and that's what it takes to like
I mean, just like people, I mean, I definitely look up to my mom and dad. Just I see, I mean, they have a great marriage. They have, you know, I remember growing up, like every day when my dad came home from work, he would meet my mom in the kitchen, and he was always extremely affectionate to my mom. And that does wonders for a child as far as like secure, makes you feel secure, seeing your parents affectionate to each other. Also, I mean, just like our church pastor and his wife, Brian and Rachel, as far as like marriage and parenting, actually we go to them. They are our people. Whenever we have like a lot of just like issues or like just like struggles, or we get in a fight or whatever, they're two of the people that we lean on a lot. But just the way that they parent their kids and how their kids, most of their kids are older than all of ours, but to see just like how well their kids have turned out, how grounded they are, just seeing like a difference in their kids, it makes us aspire to be parents like that. Yeah. And then just like on a large scale, just people that I look to, like Joshua and Christy Straub. They have a podcast actually called Famous at Home.
Yeah. And
they are absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
So if you're wanting to look, you know, into like parenting and raising kids and stuff like that, I mean, look them up. They're absolutely amazing. They're amazing people. I mean, they're both psychologists. They go all over the place. They do speaking engagements everywhere. They have multiple books. They have children's books, tons of literature. They're writing curriculums and stuff for schools. Like, they're awesome. So, I mean, look them up. They're really good. I mean, those were like immediately like two people that came to mind that like people could just go and like do some research on because they have some really great stuff out there.
Yeah. All
right, Danielle, this is from, let's just say Jenny. It's a really long username. It says, Danielle, what are your thoughts on, quote, she's still your mom, still your dad mindset? Did that ever mess with you growing up or to where you are now?
So the mindset of like, oh, but it's still your dad.
But it's
that
still
was
your mom,
never,
or like,
no, I get the phrase, but
Yeah.
the one about, oh, that's still your dad. That's not a true statement because I didn't have dad. So
it would be one thing if he was like kind of still around or like still trying to make an appearance every now and then, but he wasn't even reaching out. So it's like, that's kind of a moot point.
That's just not something I don't have a comment. I mean, it doesn't fall there. Now the statement about, but that's your mom, that always comes back around, always. And it's a hard one to.
I've heard you say that to yourself a lot.
I do because I struggle with because that's your mom, therefore you must blah, right?
Yeah.
And according to scripture, love your parents and your mother and your father, like. So that's hard. That's always been a battle with me when it comes to the trials with my mom. But I also know that there's seasons, I guess you can say. There are seasons we've gone through and go through, and especially the one over these last couple years. Yes, there's times where it's comes up and even people will say like, but that's your mom. And then I would say like, I know, but it's my mom. And I've used it tons of times. But I would say like in the season and time that we are now, where we haven't really had much of a relationship at all, I would say the phrase of still your mom is there. I mean, I go back and forth with it, but because it was an mostly unhealthy relationship, that there's a lot of dysfunction and hurt and just not okayness around that she's still your mom. That's where my hope lies in further down saying, okay, like I understand like we're in this phase now, but it doesn't mean that there cannot not be better to come because there's always hope. But I can't walk day to day with that phrase haunting me every day because I also too am a mom and having to be a wife and my kids. And that's who's got to come first for me these days. It's like, it's got to come to Adam and my kids. As horrible as that sounds, but she can't be above y'all. And that's hard. That's hard, I think, for her to realize and to even admit. But, we got married and that this is what happens. Like you become priority. And then we had our own kids and that phrase, even with her, got used a lot to me, but I'm your mother. And so that always kind of burnt like a deeper wound in me because it was because I said so or because I'm your mom. It's like, oh my God, please don't ever let those words come out of my mouth to my kids. Cause it's like, I don't ever want to repeat that, but I'm sure they have. But because that was always
as parents.
Yeah. But because it was,
I said so.
I felt like as a growing up, it was always used to her as a privilege, like because I'm your mom and like a nana boo boo kind of thing.
I can't believe you just said that.
Me neither. I don't know why I said that. Okay. Don't know why that came out, but I could just see like my face as a kid going, eh. Anyway, but it is, so I will tell you that it used to hurt me more, but because I have walked through forgiveness and healing with Jesus through that relationship with my mom, I no longer feel this guilt because guilt doesn't come from the Lord. I no longer feel this guilt that I'm always failing because I'm not doing for her. And that was something that I grew up with, being, if I'm not doing this for her or giving her this remote from the coffee table or making her this, or like I felt like just I had to do for her, or there was nothing I was allowed to do, in a sense. Like it just was not good. It wasn't healthy. As an adult, it is hard to see, because I do have children and I don't ever want them to feel the way that I have felt over the years and years and years about my mom. I don't ever want them to feel like that with me. And so, but I also know that God doesn't want to leave it like this. And I just know that there will be a time where I feel like we will have repair for that. And like, cause I have hope in that. But in right now, it's been a season of what has been needed. And I know this doesn't make a lot of sense to people, but we will get through this one day. And as we slowly unravel.
I'll just go ahead and hit it, because that probably just, while you're on this topic.
Like another question.
Many people have asked this because it was something alluded, but and probably the top asked question is, where's Mimi? Where is she now? Like where? And then also, like, where is she now? And like, what is your current standing, like, in y'all's relationship right now?
Because I'm going to tear the wall down here. Gosh, it's, I knew this question would come up, but I'm going to do it. So we don't really have a relationship right now. And I know to hear that from probably a lot of you, you're probably like, what? Oh my God, what happened? And yes, that is a statement I feel like needs to be answered to and asked to, but I don't know if I'm like quite ready to like unravel all of this. But what I would say is Mimi is still like, she's still here on earth. She still lives in Link City. She still works. She,
every now and then we have like people, honestly, how long has it probably been since we've like seen her in person? We haven't had a relationship in probably almost about 3 years at this point. And we probably, which is either one of us has probably not seen her in close to 3 years. Close to.
Well, me and Kristen actually have seen her, but at like meetups and conversations, but that was a long time ago too for the last one of that. But
so every now and then, like around town, like somebody will say, "Oh yeah, like we saw your," like they'll tell me, like I saw your mother-in-law, blah 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 here. I'm like, oh, okay. At least I know she's still around.
Yeah. And there's people that see her all the time. I've never, in this town, which you would think that I would, I've never seen her on the road. I've never run into her, which is just crazy to me, because people are always telling me like, oh, I saw your mom and blah, 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 blah. I'm like, okay. But I'm not going to unravel all that right now. That's just too much. But I will say that we don't have a relationship.
I think you probably need to not just leave it as like, oh, because it looks like you just ended a relationship, but there was
kind of did
multiple other like attempts or tries.
How about I just say that because all of my life growing up and what the viewer has seen on OutDaughtered, which I know that we may have talked about this before, you saw Mimi and you saw the best of when Mimi was good. And it's amazing. She's an amazing person. She's got a great heart. Yeah. She's a people person. She loves people. She loves attention. She loves to have fun. She's dingy. She's kooky. Like, there's a lot of good with her. But there's also a lot of struggle and hardship. And a lot of other people can relate. And I've had hardship and I've had hard times and bad things, But since this is the topic and we're saying Mimi in my relationship, my whole life growing up, it was either mom was around or mom wasn't around. And that could go on for months and times of her being present, you just kind of embrace it in the moment. But as we've had kids and we grew up and we've had kids, we don't like this in and out, in and out, in and out. And then the kids, as they get older, are asking more questions.
Yeah, it's hard on the
and
kids,
it's harder for them because they don't understand that she could be here for months and months and months and then just disappear and not call or text or anything. And then you feel that and you have to explain to them. But then also me as the daughter, but also a mom to my children, you have to learn how to have healthy boundaries. And, you know, there's some boundaries we did have to put in place and some unhealthy boundaries, you know, things that we didn't want to allow, but also things that we did a lot to just pick her up and help with this and help with that and blah, blah, blah. But it is not uncommon in my history of being her daughter to be not with her for a long period of time. And it doesn't feel weird. Like, as horrible as that might sound to whoever's listening to this is how I grew up. We were with our family, our big family, our grandparents, our aunts and uncles, cousins, living like for a long time. Like we wouldn't see mom for weeks as a kid. And that's just how we lived. And when she was there, then we would be at home with her. And it sounds so weird to say this out loud, but like that was normal for us. And as we got older and we're able to drive ourselves and take care of ourselves, and you're in high school, and if she got in a relationship with someone, that's who became priority. Yeah. And so we just did what we knew how to do, was we took care of ourselves. We would still do what we had to do and be with our, see our grandparents and eat dinner with them. And so I'm telling you, like, it's a whole nother side of that was never meant for TV. Yeah. And never really had a reason to ever like why that wasn't. Mimi was the quirky, goofy grandma, and like it was good for TV and it was good for the kids because that's how she was. And it's good. But there are also seasons of where we could not allow things to be on TV because it was unhealthy. And we had to say no. And it was just toxic. And there was a lot of things where it was hard on me, which then over the years, I start to realize that I'm feeling so
depleted, drained,
like attacked in a way of that she is absorbing all of my energy and strength and making sure that she is okay in a sense. And it was pulling me away from Adam. And I'm like, she just started to become something in taking me outside of my family, meaning Adam and the kids, because there was just so many triggers from, growing up in unhealthy scenarios that I just had to say, I can't do this, A lot of people think, when all the stuff happened with her that came out in the press and whatnot, that's when relationship ended. And it's like that, like, I'm sorry, time-wise, that was kind of all happening at the same time, but it had nothing, I'm just going to be frank, it had nothing to do with the DUI. Let me rephrase that. It was not because of the DUI. It was not because of the DUI. This was a lifelong life. 38, 37 years that we lived with her, and ups and downs all around. And there just came a time where I'm just speaking for myself, that I was like, I cannot do this anymore. I just had to have a boundary. I'm like falling apart. I'm weak. I'm like destroyed. You can't do anything to please someone who's unhappy themselves and who doesn't want to help themselves. And I mean, I can go on around and around and around, but the main point of this story of where is she and what's the relationship is, she is still locally around this town. We, however, have not had a relationship because there was a drastic change that needed to happen for some very major unhealthy relationship, and just from a mother to daughter, but also just from a grown up to a grown up, and from just how she was, her versus the 8 of us Busbys, and never, ever, ever, ever wanted it to be what it is today and what happened all these years. But this is where we are. And I can say that as horrible as it sounds and as hard as it has been, because it has been really, really hard. But I'm going to tell you, I went up front with this with God, and this is what I had to do. We had to set a boundary, and we just had to say no. And a wall had to go up, and we had to slowly tear down the wall. And I had to slowly tear down this wall and work out a lot of things with God in my healing and for my own like mental and physical health of the being that I am, to be able to be here and be a wife and be a mom to the girls that God has given me. And there was just so much confusion and so many things going through my head that was like, well, I don't want to be like this, but this is what this is. And I don't want my kids to think this is me. Well, how am I going to treat her like this? And how do I say no? And I don't want this. Like it was a war. It was just a war constantly going on. Manipulation of because I'm your mom and because of this and because of that. And it's like, it just like, it was eating at me and more than just me. And so I would say that I've walked through, I think mentally and spiritually, I'm at like such a better place, walking through a lot of things, not necessarily with my mom specifically, like voice to voice and like talking to her about it. But just I had to walk through a lot of hurt that I wasn't even aware of. And to do that, I had to say no, and I had to become healed myself. And that took walking through a hard journey of saying no to her and shutting it down so that I could better prepare me to be who I need to be for Adam, the kids, and to be a daughter and to be someone in her life for when this moment comes where we rekindle. And I honestly feel at peace with where I've walked with this journey. I know, to think about mom listening to this and hearing this, I mean, I wouldn't say anything. I wouldn't hold back anything. I'm holding back a lot of things right now on this mic, but just because I'm not ready to open the floodgates. But per the question, I mean, I think that was just a necessary action that needed to take place for the health of so many people. And one being myself and my family, and two being my mom, though she might not agree with that.
But there were also like over the years, there were like multiple attempts to help her. And
the question was, what's today?
And to make a change. And she never stuck with it.
We can both get fired up talking about this because it's just a sensitive subject, I guess. But I don't want to put words or assumptions in that scenario because that is what it should be, is that we should be doing everything we can to be here for the family, which therefore then means I must be doing everything to be who I need to be for her to be in our family. And that's not exactly what I'm saying. I agree with the statement, but it's not the statement where I've had to literally walk through trauma and abuse in a way, not necessarily like physical, not that kind of abuse, just like this mental abuse of just everything is like spaghetti. It's just a messed up ball of yarn, it's just, and then it's just slowly had to unravel it so that those healthy patterns and that healthy relationship can start over. I don't know if that's even possible, but to say that I do know that there is a day that God is going to like bring us back together. And as of today, that day is not here. And I do believe that because I have walked through peace and I've walked through forgiveness of all the things that I have dealt with her over the 40 years that I've, she's been here in my life because I'm 40. And that's a lot of hard things. But yeah, I mean, it is what it is right now. And I feel like it was a hard step and it was a much needed step that I wasn't aware of that was needed. And it was something that had never been done before. And there's been a lot of therapy through this, and a lot of conversations with God and with mentors, and people praying for this. And it's been a journey. It's been a journey. But where we are today, I do not currently have a relationship with her as far as talking. There might be a text here every once in a while, but nothing relationship wise. And so, we're just continuing to pray for healing and restoration of restoring that kind of like, I don't even want to say restoring, just bringing a new relationship of a healthy sound of some sort. So, whew. Let's do a fun question now.
Well, here's one last.
Are there any of those?
Last one about kind of similar to that though. Danielle, how do you respond when your girls ask you about either your dad or your mom?
Straight up honest, but honesty comes with learning how to use verbiage so that that child of whatever age can fully understand. I would say that as the kids have grown up, it's kind of weird. They would see when Mimi was around more, it was like they knew Mimi was my mom. But if mom wasn't here and then Adam's parents, Nana and Papa, were over, they just assume Nana and Papa is my mom and dad, and Adam's mom and dad, which by marriage and stuff they are, but biologically that's daddy's mom and dad, And so they just, and as they've gotten older, they, okay. They get it. But honestly, love, I never brought up that I did not grow up with a dad until the level of where they started to comprehend who a daddy is. This is their daddy. Papa is this daddy. And like, I don't recall like ever like really verbalizing or saying like, oh, I didn't grow up with that. Like, I don't walk around telling people that. Like, it's not that big of a subject to me because it's just a statement. I didn't grow up with it, and it doesn't affect me in a way where I must make everybody know. That's just not something that
And to be honest, the girls don't ask.
Well, over the years, they ask every once in a while. And it's mostly,
it's like once in a blue moon.
Yeah. And it's mostly in times where it's probably just me and them. Maybe, I don't know. I've had a lot of questions with them, not necessarily all together, not like we have like a family meeting and like talk about this, but if they ask, I want to be nothing but honest. And I just say like, well, I didn't grow up with a daddy. And they'll say, well, why? And I'll just tell them, Mimi is my mommy and I did have a daddy, but he did not live with us and he did not want to be married and he didn't want to be a daddy. So he left. And that's okay because God has always protected and loved me more than he could ever have. And so I've never hidden that at all. And if they ask, I want to be nothing but honest. But like I said, you have to use words in a way that they can understand. So now they're getting to an age. And like, even I remember like Blake going through that, trying to understand like how babies are made. And it takes a dad and a mom and in their eyes. And we want them to know like, you get married and God blesses your marriage and you will, reproduce and have children. And it takes a man and a woman and this kind of stuff. And so we tell them those things. But to grow up without a dad, you have to kind of use the correct terminology and how you say it. But I've never hidden it from them that I didn't grow up with one. When the statement comes up about mom and Mimi, it's like, it definitely happened to, a lot of times with like holidays or birthdays or things that we're all getting together, which my sisters and our families, like we do get together quite often. We love each other and we want that family dynamic and we want our kids to know each other and our cousins to grow up together like we grew up with our cousins. But I mean, it's really sad now. They know that she's not around and they don't necessarily, it's hard to like kind of explain this, but Blake has always been 4 years older. And so if I haven't really had a relationship with a mom in 3 years, you're talking about Blake being in 5th grade, which the Quints are now in 4th grade. So very similar time frame that the Quints are in right now. This is when all this stuff was happening and kind of separation and relationship with mom, where Blake would ask and Blake would ask. And it's like, we just had to be frank, because I started to kind of struggle with, what do I say to make her think that it's not something they did, meaning them, the kids. So I remember having a conversation with Mandy, and she was saying, Danielle, she's like, the best thing you can do is be honest with them and make sure that they know that no matter what, Mimi loves you, and it's not anything that you did, and she will always love you. But right now, there's things that she has to take care of, and she has to go. And so I would tell them things like, just like whenever you get in trouble or you make someone upset or mad, there's consequences about things, and there's, some frustrations, or maybe you don't want to talk to someone. And I just would use words like this, but always reassure them, like, no matter what, Mimi loves you, like, and she will always love you, and I want you to love her too, And so as those questions got more vivid and more specific, as they've gotten older, the Quints and stuff, we just had to say, like, we're just on a season where mommy's been hurt. There's some things that mommy and Mimi haven't agreed on. And so we just needed to have some time separate so that we could work on healing and repairing our hearts, and just praying about a lot of things that God needs to do inside our hearts before we can hang out again. And a lot of times, right before I answer their questions, I'm literally in the quick of my mind saying, dear Lord Jesus, please give me the words to speak, because I don't know how to answer this question appropriately. And I could say that so fast. And then by the grace of God, like, he'll give me these words that just comes out so beautiful. And so I just, for those asking this question, I mean, take that breath in that moment to just say a quick prayer before you answer it to your kids, but always choose honesty, but choose the right words, and within that quick prayer before, of just saying, God, give me the words to speak to help them understand. Like, that's great, because we don't always know what to do, and we don't always know how to deal with everything. But I do know that if you lean on God and you ask for that, he will guide you, and you have to be open to that, though. So yeah,
it's good.
Faith and honesty. There's a mosquito on your neck. Can I slap it?
I know.
Oh, it's right here. Why is there a mosquito in here? It's right.
Here's one. It says, Adam, how long did you live at home, and did you ever move into Danielle's apartment? And we did not move in together until after we were married. And I stayed at home. I mean, honestly, like, I lived with my parents. I went to school and then college, and it was only like 20 minutes from my house. And it never really made sense to like move out. And so like I stayed at my parents' house.
Out, but because we lived like 30 minutes away, and you would work like you would stay at my apartment, because I moved out when I was 18, got my own apartments and stuff. But there was times where you stayed over, but you never like appropriately like moved in with me. It was always like my place.
Yeah. Like I never like moved to close in or anything like that. It was just like
a night here or whatever. Yeah.
Let's see. Here's one about your health.
Dude, don't ask that. That's such a long question to answer right now.
This is something that we'll get into later on, because obviously for those of you that don't know the history or like kind of seen everything going on the show, which I don't even think it was covered in very much depth on the show, but I mean, Danielle is going through and struggling with like an autoimmune, you call it disorder. I think disorder. It seems like everybody nowadays, it seems like has an autoimmune issue. I don't know why, but it's becoming all too common nowadays, but Danielle's in the thick of it. We're constantly figuring out or trying to figure out like, actually. Danielle, how is your health? She says, my journey has been about 19 years, and I pray you're doing well. So,
thanks.
That was Tracy.
The health journey is a long one at work in progress. And I know here's what it is. I haven't like fully shared like a big update as far as like what's going on and what's doing, because I haven't felt like I have
definitive.
Yeah,
answer.
it's like how do I appropriately share something that I don't have it together with, in a sense.
Yeah.
And so it's difficult. However, there are things that I have, like, when this all kind of started, I would say, like, when I turned 37 was just the hell year. And what I'm really thinking back then is, like, there just was so much happening and so much going on, from all the mold in the house, which could be a big part of all this, to health stuff.
Yeah.
But I also have always had GI and struggles and everything pretty much since I was like 10 and 12 years old. And so I've struggled diet wise and certain like foods and everything, which I've known for years, since basically I was the Blake's age,
Yeah.
So that's always been something I've struggled with and have dealt with. However, when I it kind of just really started with, I just couldn't go up the stairs. Like, I could not walk up the stairs in the house, and I just thought something is wrong. Like, and of course I had pains and this and that, and I was always in pain. And I mean, my body had quintuplets, and I'm constantly was bending and lifting and squatting and bending and lifting times 5 for every little thing. In the high chair, 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 out the high chair, out the high chair, out the high, in the bed, in the bed, in the bed, in the bed, out the crib, out the crib, out the crib, up the stairs, upstairs, downstairs, like all day, every day. This is what you did, And of course my body like went through a lot. And then after having a C-section, and I will preface to say, before I had the quints, it was the best and most healthiest of my life I've ever been.
Mm-hmm.
So after I had Blake, to having the quints, the best physically, food intake, like just mentally, health, all that was the best. And I look at that and say, God knew what he was doing to try to prepare me for this carrying of the quints. And I believe that. And I said, I mean, why else would I have been such in perfect health condition and everything at that time? And it was to prepare my body for what it was going to go through years later. And the thing when it comes to health is what I've kind of realized is that things that have been shared as far as like, I have a lot of inflammation. I have a lot of pain, my neck pain. There was the numbness. There was the tingling, out of breath, my heart palpitations, like a lot of things. And the first thing that every doctor would say and look at me and says, do you live a stressful life? And it's like, if I hear somebody tell me to stop stressing out or to de-stress, or it's because you're stressed, like, this is my life.
That's not really an option.
It stays here. It's not an option. I'm just being mom, and this is what it is. So I can't change that, But I will say that one thing that I have learned is that I feel like there's so many people that say, I'm struggling with the exact same thing you are. And I hear you, but it's not the same. It's not the same. Every single body is created very differently. And yes, we're all human and whatnot, but I went through something that hundreds of people have, not thousands, not millions, not hundreds of thousands. I mean, there's X number of people who actually have had quintuplets. And if they've experienced something like I have, I feel like we can say it's a little bit more common. But because my body has walked through something, it's not necessarily supposed to, quote unquote. I don't even know if that's a real statement or if that's even done, because we're not supposed to, but I did, or God did. I feel like there is a lot of things that are similar, but no medical doctor can fully understand what my body feels and what my body is going through. However, I have been able to pinpoint some factors as far as like looking into my heart, and yes, I still have like the PDA and stuff. I still have that, and I do have to get that checked every year. But I also discovered that I have esophagus issues that don't open and close correctly, which then causes a lot of pain in my chest and all these things, which then causes problems with digestion. And I mean, so that was helpful at the time, but that wasn't a cause of certain reasons, of certain things. Numbness and tingling, and my neck and major pains. I did a lot of nerve studies and a lot of stuff. I get treated with like fibromyalgia, which is having 11, if you have 11 or more main trigger points of pain, which I have a lot of those. But I get treated for that. I was having like extreme, like that myofascial pain, which is they're saying is the muscular skeletal pain that I'm having, like fibromyalgia and stuff. But I was having debilitating migraines and whatnot in the back of my head down to my nerves down my neck. And so I just was messed up. Like my body was messed up. The nerves, having quintuplets and the weight that my knees had to put on, what my hips did, what my lower back did. Like my body is damaged inside. And I feel like it sucks and it's hard, but what hurts the most is just the inflammation and the pains that come and go, and the days that you can be fine and the days that you can't, and you don't know how to explain it, but like you just can't move, like you just can't.
I think one of the hardest things about, I mean, even just like living with someone with an autoimmune disorder, is just there's so many unknowns with it. One day you could be perfectly fine, and then it's like a light switch, and then like the next day you're just like can't get out of bed, like today's not the day. That's hard to just go like from great to just boom, like you're on your back, and you just never know. And it's like, I don't know, it makes it very, it's hard, you know?
Yeah.
There's just so many unknowns with it. And what sucks is with autoimmune disorders is just like it could be one of 1,000 different things.
Yeah, and I also have that, but I also ended up having to have a hysterectomy after having the quintuplets. Like, what was it, like 3 or 4 years after having them?
Yeah.
I was having major issues with that and still having cysts and everything. And I suffered with cysts on my ovaries and rupturing. And I mean, I was just in an immense amount of pain, and I didn't know how much pain I was in until I received some like healing with the pain. And that took about 1.5 years, 2 years to get to the point where I remember telling my neurologist, like, I just didn't know how miserable I was until I felt that I don't feel those pains all the time. And so I do take different vitamins. I was definitely deficient in a lot of vitamins. Hormones were off. I mean, just a mix of things, but I don't have a perfect name for this is what's wrong with me.
Yeah.
However, I am ready to adjust the journey of the medical side of things, and kind of because I can't stand medication. I'm always nauseated, stomach hurt. Like I just super sensitive to that stuff. And I'm going to start, I think that's my goal for 2025, is just kind of getting back on the health journey, but slowly trying to, and I've kind of already started this year.
Like a deep dive into diet and nutrition and
taking away certain things that I've been on to try to figure out what is the main reason and cause. And I've slowly started to do that this year, but I've now found the doctors that I want to like work with, and more of like the functional medicine kind of things. And so I feel like I'll try to do better at like walking through that, but it's hard in a sense. And, but for next year, I'm kind of like, that's going to be my goal. Getting off of medication that helps me 75% of the time. Yeah. But
it's been hard because like, I mean, just doctors and just trying different things. They'll like prescribe a certain medication, or she'll go on this for a few months or go on this for 6 months. And then they'll take her off of that. And just the way that those medications react to your body.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, some of them would just cause you to like retain water and fluid.
Yeah. I mean, I was before all this, I was on so many steroids for inflammation and pain, like weekly, along with so many just like, God, I can't even remember. I was taking like stuff to sleep, pain medicine, like muscle relaxers, and then that I only would take at night because I couldn't sleep because I was in so much pain. And then just steroids because I would inflammation. And then I just was like, I can't live on these and still be miserable. Like this is doing nothing. So thankfully I was able to find a good room of doctors and pull back all that. And I really do give a lot of credit. I love my GI doctor who I've seen for years just because of the issues that I've always had, rheumatologists, the heart cardiologist to a neurologist and the nerve doctor, like all that. My neurologist really kind of just really pulled everything together and took me off everything and was like, I'm putting you on this one medication. We're going to try this. And it took about a year to get dosage right. But that is actually the only one medicated pill that I take now to help with migraine preventative and a lot of that, like myofascial pain and fibromyalgia stuff. So, and it also helps with my stomach. So it's really been like an amazing drug that I take. However, I've been on it for 3 years now or 2.5, 3 years now, I guess. Yeah. And I'm just ready to find out what the real cause is. And so I needed to walk through like not feeling pain to just do life. But now that I'm, kids are older and they're more independent and things, I can at least like separate myself a little bit during the day to kind of like work on that. Get it.
You're gonna hit me.
I got it. It's on your collar like a pin. So yeah, I mean that journey is still one in that's going on. But yeah. I'll try to do better at sharing.
Yeah, I mean this will give us a platform to where like we can do like more regular updates and like, okay, like this is
I've had a lot of social media diagnostic.
What's going on now? Yeah, so many people are like, this is what's wrong with you.
I've had people send me books and letters and tell me this is what I'm like, whoa, okay.
Yeah. Like, man, like we're going to a lot of doctors and man, these people on Instagram just got it figured out. Man, like
they just
haven't seen a single blood test, haven't seen anything, but they got it figured out.
Yeah.
It's funny.
Yeah. Is there a lot? I'm sure there's a lot of more questions, but are we getting close to wrapping up?
I think we're gonna do this one more. And then we'll wrap up because we're like almost an hour and a half. Just that top. Did you move it?
This one?
Yeah.
Do you find it hard to have genuine friendships, not only from having kids, but the show?
I would say, especially like having the TV show, and just like so much public scrutiny, so much, having a TV show, for the better part of a decade, you become so known in this area. And so you get to a point where even at church, around town, friends of friends or friends groups that you find yourself in, I don't know. I think for me, for sure, like you get to a point where you're always worrying about like what people's intentions are for like why they're getting close to us.
I think that's a fair statement for new friendships.
Yeah. And so I mean, for sure, like since having the TV show and stuff like that, our circle has definitely gotten a lot smaller than it was before that. And, we try to just focus on very deep relationships with friends. And so, we try our best to like, the people that we're the closest to now, for one thing, family, but also people that are in the same kind of stage of life that we are, that just like can relate to us the most. And so, our closest friends, they all have kids that are right around the same ages as ours. I mean, most of them have at least 3 or 4 kids themselves. And so it's like, it's people that can relate to you, people that understand you. And where like, sometimes like we'll go into a situation, like we're bringing our 6 kids and it's like, you're like, oh crap, we're bringing our 6 kids. And like, cause some people are like, oh gosh, that's a lot.
Well, there's always that level.
Our friends are like, oh yeah, bring them on. Like, cause they're used to it and they understand it because like they get it themselves, their other friends. And so it's like, we're closest to the people that are just like, they love you no matter what.
Yeah. But we also have, I'll speak for myself, but like also have had the solid group of girlfriends and their families before we even had the TV show.
Yeah.
Like we had a church families and friends before the TV show. If I think more over the last couple of years, like newer friendships coming in our life, I think you are a little bit, or I know I am a little bit more probably hard because I don't know. I tell myself like, I don't need new friends, but we have small group and stuff. And it's like, it's kind of one of those things like, you know, putting yourself in a scenario where you're going to meet a bunch of people and their families and you want to do life together. And I'm like, that's more I got to try to keep up with and more. But honestly, it's such a beautiful thing because that community of being able to meet each other and have like-mindedness when it comes to the way you want to raise your family, but also just the amount of kids that are around. Like, it doesn't make us feel weighted because we always felt, I mean, I still think to this day, it's some of our friends struggled to invite us at time for things because if you were going to come with your kids, it's like, oh, there's 6 kids. So we always feel the weight of that. Like, and I'm not going to lie. Like, it hurts. It hurts. Yeah. Like, some of your best and closest people in your life don't want to necessarily invite you, not because they don't love you, just because it's a lot and they don't have room for anybody else to come over.
Yeah.
So that's been something we've had to kind of like humble ourselves and kind of like walk through. And I don't know, but it is hard. It is hard.
I say like one of the, like a red flag for me is like whenever we're like, you know, at a party or like, you know, friends invite us over and it's just like a bunch of other couples or whatever. But like red flag for me is like if another couple or another guy recognize or knows us.
Oh, if they bring up the show
and brings up the show, it's like instantly, I don't want to have anything to do with you. Like, I don't want to talk to you. Like, whenever I'm with my friends, I don't want to talk about the show. I don't want to talk about TV.
It's like when we're with family and stuff, like we don't want to talk about the episode. I mean, we just want to be our normal friendship and whatever. Will we talk about it? Yeah. Absolutely. But if someone stranger came up to us in a social group,
just starts asking us questions about that,
and this has happened like, multiple times. Yeah. You're like, okay, this guy just won't stop, or they won't stop talking to us about the show. Like, they're not asking anything else but that. It's like, okay, you give them a little piece of your time, and then
those people usually don't get invited back.
Yeah. Or yeah. Yeah. Or if you do see them around, they're asking the same thing.
Yeah.
But, you know, you have to.
And our close friends are usually very protective of us and sympathetic to that. Yeah. Like, if they see that happen, they usually like come to our rescue.
Yeah. So I know we're thinking of the same people that were.
Yeah, for sure. And so we'll end on that. We'll end on a funny note. But thank you guys. Obviously, this was a pretty long podcast, but hopefully that answered a lot of those kind of lingering questions that were out there. And
hey, when I start talking, it goes on.
Yeah.
I warned y'all that from the beginning.
I mean, that was a tough one. I mean, like the stuff with your mom, I mean, that's tough, and it's a long way around, and like there's still a lot of stuff that are just like unanswered, but you know, you share with like what like you're comfortable with sharing right now, and I'm sure that like stretched you a little bit to even be vulnerable like that.
I know.
And I'm sure Danielle was probably sweating, but
honestly, didn't even think of like those questions coming from this Q&A on that. Like, for some reason, I was like, I touched back on some of that, but I didn't really talk about now. Thanks, whoever that was.
So
you didn't say that person's name.
Yeah,
there was too many of them.
It was a lot of them, and it's pretty much the same question. So hopefully that kind of answered a lot of stuff, and we're gonna move on from that for a little bit. But thank you guys for tuning in, and you know, honestly, like having this where we can just like talk and be real and being open and honest and share our heart with you guys. I mean, like, we're loving doing this right now. We're
still going to share
6-7 episodes in. I forget. We have a lot of episodes that we've like already recorded. So I'm not sure where this falls in now, but
you will be getting into some more good, heartfelt. I know some of those questions about like Danielle's finding Christ and testimony and stuff like that.
And there was a lot of questions about like infertility and, you know, the pregnancy and stuff like that, which in the coming episodes, we're going to answer a lot of those questions. So we're like, we'll hit those in a little bit. I know that's like a hot topic that a lot of people are curious about.
Yeah.
So
some of the questions we didn't get to, we didn't answer just because we know that they're coming up in the last couple episodes we've already filmed. So hopefully those will get answered with them. But we might do this Q&A every couple episodes or whatnot, just to kind of, when we feel like we've gone through a mark of statements and phases of life, just because we can only say so much on a hour, and
Yeah.
we want to be able to make sure that we're engaging with you guys too. But
yeah, we'll start getting to where like you'll see like on social media, like the same questions keep getting asked, and we're like, okay, we probably need to do a Q&A again.
yeah.
So,
All right, guys, thanks for listening to More Than Reality podcast
Yep.
with Adam and Danielle.
yeah, thank you for being a part of it.